irons on Facebook and stuff like that. So because there's so much, the expectation is so much hype around social media, it's very difficult now to actually go and set expectations for people properly. In most cases, when people that are social media experts take on you gotta stop. You gotta stop right now. When people take on these projects because clients come and wave a check in from them and say, we'll do social media anyway, it's usually not going to work for them. And I mean like 90% of the time it's usually not going to work, which then gives us a bad name in the industry because then people come back and say, yeah, I tried that and it sucked because it didn't work for me. And now we're getting into an issue where there's so much noise out there. There's people that follow everybody on Twitter that will never meet each other and really don't have a whole lot in common. So it's difficult to break through all the noise on Twitter and all the different social networks to even get your voice heard.
So speaking of the noise, how many of you have seen Michelle Gurr's video about, she's chatting with somebody at a party and they're like, hey, didn't you hear that on Twitter? And she's like, no. And so I, have not even as many people as you do. So just a few thousand people on Twitter, and when I get one message from everybody, I get like 40,000 at the same time. It's like, and then everybody responds to each other. So like 30 pages of Twitter goes by like every couple of seconds, and people are like, why didn't you see that? Know to come to this event. And it's like, I don't know. So you have to use the phone, but it's also too noisy from a standpoint of what we were talking about judging these things, right? With the beer and everything, there are so many things that are just replicated over and over and over again.
How many times have we heard about priests for porn?
How many times? I'm saying, we thought that's where they were going, and we're like, we heard that at the last event. Nobody liked it. But and by the way,
didn't win then, didn't win.
The fact that it's too noisy, that's why it doesn't work usually. Is because there's too many things. All you're doing is giving too many things for people to try to keep up with all at the same time. Everybody goes and joins all these networks. My thing is, I'm a big critic of Facebook and a bunch of the other social networking sites because they're like, we've got 40 million users. Well, it's just like in the open source community. SourceForge has 200,000 projects. Only about 5,000 of them are active. You're the one that went over. I'm at 40 seconds. It says G+W. We argue a lot.
Hate you.
There you go. So, restraining orders. Gio?
I don't want to do no slide with you.
I'll do it. So, except for your item in orange.
Okay, so we've got this idea. We're going to launch a website called Social Media Restraining Order, which is basically a listing, a dig-like site, with stories on it about the things that people shouldn't have done in social media. So that's where the title came from.
So here's what happens. You go submit someone to it, and then you all vote them up, and then at the end of the week, it'll send them an actual restraining order. It'll be great. And that could be, don't use Twitter anymore. Or maybe it could be something like, stop virtually stalking me.
Don't launch your search engine when it's not ready, that kind of thing.
That's right. And don't call people for quotes on your search engine to where they're going to go, oh, I might be able to talk about that. And they search themselves, and then everything is about them except every picture is someone else.
So on the situation with Cool, and a lot of folks in here know what we're talking about, the search engine, that is the Google Killer, launched by former Googlers, was released this week. And I have to admit, the PR firm did a phenomenal job of going out, making sure they embargoed the story. They made it sexy because this is from former Googlers. And actually, these folks actually sold their previous technology to Google. So they came to the table with a pedigree. They went out and they did, pre-work with all the press and the bloggers also to make sure that people were ready, but no one got to see the product before it launched. And if you're familiar with the story, when the product launched, it wasn't so good. So what happened, you have all these folks that in traditional and in new media that felt like they were sold a bill of goods, and so the rage was pretty terrible for Cool. And so now you've got a situation where even today, I guess we're 3 days into this thing, and they still have not really fixed the engine to where photos make sense with the things that people are searching in on. And to defend them, we're so used to what Google feeds us and what should be a proper result. When people do searches on Coal, the problem is that because they don't see what Google would present to them, they think it's bad, and they don't understand that Cool's taking a completely different approach.
Right.
But what you don't do is go out there and not at least let people vet the product and see the product first, you know, and before you go out there and actually launch it to the market.
Work with your customers, right? The problem is that they didn't do any kind of work with anybody as far as use cases or getting people to try it out. And the other problem is the reason they can't fix it now is they're too busy handling phone calls about why they suck so bad. And that's a horrible position to be in. So SEO, by this we mean search engine whores. Geo.
My name's awfully large.
I put it big and green. We didn't have red as a color to pick from. What are you doing? You can't edit the presentation like this every time.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, wait. Oh, no, you're doing it. Oh, yeah. Well, if you have internet, search for Giovanni Lucci.
No, search for
search engine.
Social media expert.
Social media expert, and he'll come up first.
And so, from the standpoint of social media has been a godsend for search engine optimizers. And I'm still amazed that it's still as effective as it is when you can go out, create backlinks, and create branded experiences on the web that then turn around and feed Google. I haven't really even done any optimization on my personal brand for about 6 months, and I'm still #1 in Google for search engine expert. And it amazes me because there's so much staying power. And I do things like Twitter. I use LinkedIn. I think Flickr is the thing that gives me the most juice from Google. So if you're using Flickr, I would go out and tag all your photos with whatever keywords you want to be linked to on Google. But you got to be careful because Flickr does have terms and conditions that if they see you're breaking them, they'll ban you from Flickr. So you've got to position yourself in there as linking to personal sites or maybe deep links into sites so it's not obviously a marketing campaign. And make no bones about this, there's plenty of black hats out there. I've done some things for clients that are black hat techniques. Sorry to the community, but at the same time, you know, there are situations where you have commercial enterprises going on in different forms and networks. You need to know where to stay out and keep the commercial talk out of those, and you need to know where it's okay, and then you know, it's a game of exploitation.
Well, and there's a real simple rule. So Giovanni and I, guess what, have opposing views. No one would ever imagine that. But, you know, with open source, it's like people game their projects on SourceForge, right? So they go and they try to get things, get their project up to #1, when all they really have to do is do it right. Because the way it should work is there's certain algorithms for measuring these things, and if you're doing that right, then you can, you know, get up high. The problem I have with the SEO optimization
and we will preempt this with, you will be incorrect, but go ahead.
That's fine. He is #1 on Google as a search engine expert, so I really shouldn't question him. But here's the way it works. When you do things like that, what you see is these big spikes. And you're really popular, and then you're really not, because doing that takes maintenance. So if you're not prepared to do the amazing amount of work that Giovanni has to do, 24 hours a day, on all of those sites, all of those things he's maintaining, don't start that, because you're going to peak to the top, and then you're going to fall.
Yeah, key is having a job where you can do that on the clock, and people don't know that you're not working.
So, all right. Social gaming.
Does this mean again?
Good segue. No, it's both of us. You can start with what would Giovanni do? That's WWG.
Part of...
this is what happens when you don't participate in making the slides.
One of the things that I found most effective in social media is events like this. This is a perfect way to get yourself some juice in search engines to rise to the top. Go out there, blog about social media camp, blog about the Mashable Summer Tour, name drop like crazy. Where's Pete at? Pete left. Everyone today should be Pete Cashmore's best friend in their blog. And link from Pete's site to your site. I mean, these are the things you do in order to get juice in the search engines. And like Worley says, it's fleeting, but it builds. It's just like any other PR or communications or marketing campaign. You take advantage of what's happening right now that's popular. People on the web are searching for this event today to find out what's going on here. You'll get a huge spike in traffic. It'll settle down, but it's going to settle down a little bit higher than it was before. The next bar camp you go to, the next event you go to, if it's a Microsoft conference, if it's an Apache thing, blog about it, use the nerds, get the words that are associated with that event, get the names of the speakers, talk about the speakers in your blog posts, because the people that are more famous than you are the ones that are getting the attention, so associate your blog so people know to come to your website to find the content, and out of the group of people that come to your site, some will stick around to continue to read about what you're talking about.
Right, and that's an important point. When you do all all of this and you try to game these things, if you don't actually have something of value, then you've completely wasted everyone's time.
Well, and to be honest, I mean, I'm awfully flippant about the fact that I do a lot of stuff that's, really cheesy and tacky in a lot of people's eyes, but I wouldn't be effective if I wasn't adding value, and if I wasn't authentic, and I wasn't actually coming to these things and whether it's pictures. I mean, one of the first things I found out, if I take pictures and put them on Flickr on the day during the event,